Alright guys, welcome back to another operaomnia video where we are about to look at Faris, who is going to be getting an LD with the release of the upcoming Transcendence. We're going to talk about the adjustments that she had in her skills and also her LD ability, and why I feel like this is an LD ability that I would highly recommend players try to snag, because using her as an LD card with her abilities and all of the frame debuffs on it really do make a change and do help you out in upcoming Lufenia fights. So we're going to talk about all that in this video. So as always, if you guys do enjoy the video, consider liking the video and subscribing for future Omnia content. And I will of course put timestamps in the description of this video, so that way if you're just focused on one thing, then you can just go ahead and skip over to that time segment. So yeah, let's go ahead, let's jump into it. Let's talk about Faris's upcoming LD weapon. So first off, we're going to talk about Faris's adjustments. Her Crystal level 50 Awakening, which is her Crown's Order. When mastering an ability, it increases the party's, except for herself, initial Brave and max Brave by 10%. Her Crystal level 55 Awakening, which is her Water World Extend. When you are using Water World or her Plus version, it adds a self-enchant water effect to the Pirate Way buff, and it deals 50% splash HP damage to non-targets. Her Crystal level 60 Awakening, which is her Cannon Fire Extend. When you are using Cannon Fire or Cannon Fire Plus, it turns the Brave attacks into a 4-hit water AoE range Brave attack. It increases the Brave damage dealt towards debuff targets, and it also improves the effects of her attack down debuff and the defense down debuff up to 70%. When you are using Cannon Fire, you do get an increase to Overflow up to 150%, and then when you are using her Plus version, you get an increase to Overflow again, but up to 180% instead of the 150%. Faris's LD weapon, which is called Gladius. It equips to the LD ability called Spellblade Swords Dance. It is a 4-hit Thunder, Water, Wind, Melee Brave plus HP attack executed twice. It increases the Brave damage dealt towards debuff targets, and it allows for 150% Stolen Brave, Max Brave Overflow. And it deals 50% splash HP damage to non-targets on her last attack. It inflicts the Charming Dance debuff and a Framed Poison, attack 70% down, defense 70% down, max Brave 30% down, debuffs to all enemies for 4 actions. Now the Charming Dance debuff is a Thunder, Wind, Water resistance debuff with the Brave damage dealt down by 20. And it sets Brave to 0 after turn if the enemy is not broken. Now her limit break passives on her LD weapon. At 1 out of 3, Faris does get an increase on her max Brave by 10% and her attack by 30%, and the Brave damage dealt gets an increase whenever you are using her LD ability by 10%. At 2 out of 3, she does get the increase in max Brave and attack. When the quest begins on her first turn, she will not consume ability usage excluding some abilities. And when the battle begins, it inflicts the Charming Dance and the Frame debuffs on all enemies for 4 actions. Afterwards, when you are using her Spellblade Swords Dance, it extends the base duration of all of the debuffs from her LD ability from 4 actions up to 8 actions. Finally, whenever you max out her LD ability, you do get an extra usage to her LD ability, and her Brave attack turns into a Brave attack plus plus, which is a 2-hit AoE melee Brave attack with an increase to Brave damage dealt towards a single target by 60%, an increase to Brave damage dealt towards debuff targets, and it also extends the duration of all enemies' Charming Dance debuff by 1 action. Her LD board, or her LD extension with her LD ability, when you are using her LD ability, it turns into a 2-hit Thunder, Water, Wind, Melee Brave plus HP attack. Then she recovers Brave to herself based on 20% done of the total HP damage dealt, and then follows up with a 4-hit Thunder, Water, Wind, Melee Brave plus HP attack, then recovers Brave to herself again based on 20% of the total HP damage dealt, and then does another 4-hit Thunder, Water, Wind, Melee Brave plus HP attack with an increase to Brave potency by a tremendous amount. Finally, we'll talk about her call ability. So her first call ability, which is her cannon fire ability, before she attacks, she increases her own max brave by a small amount, and then she does a 4-hit water AoE range brave plus an AoE HP attack. She does get an increase in brave damage there when attacking either a single target or debuffed targets, and she allows for 120% stolen brave max brave overflow. She inflicts the enemies with poison, attack down, defense down, and max brave down to all enemies for 4 actions, and she also clears all buffs that they currently have from the targets. Her LD call ability, which is going to be her LD ability, pretty much what that does, because I'm not going to read through the entire thing because it's pretty much everything that I just mentioned earlier, is that it inflicts the Charming Dance debuff, the Framed Poison debuff, the attack down 70% debuff, defense down 70% debuff, the max brave down 30% debuff to all enemies for 4 actions. Now we're at the point in the video where I give you guys my honest opinions on the character based off of my experiences of using them on the JP side of operaomnia. So, first off, I will say that I have been talking about Faris for a good while now, and I think most people, based off of my showcases or my playthroughs of the Lufenia fights that I have done on the JP side, you have probably noticed that I have used Faris or her LD call many times. Now, I really don't see her being used that often or hardly any in team cons, because just her LD call ability and her regular call ability is more than enough to have her frequently used in many team cons. The biggest thing is that with those debuffs that she inflicts on the enemy, the 70% defense down, the 70% attack down is one of the biggest things about her that players on the JP side, including myself, still use today. And the thing is though, like, you can stack that with other frame debuffs. Like, take example, you can use Faris call and the Jack call together and any other defense call to decrease the enemy's defense to get that extra brave damage in on the enemies. That's kind of like an example. The only thing right now with Faris's LD call is that it does take up 4 slots. Right now on the JP side, we have the ability to inflict the enemy with 8 debuffs, just as much as they can buff themselves with 8 buffs. So to try to squeeze in as many debuffs as possible onto the enemy so we can be able to do more brave damage or more HP damage or do whatever, is much easier on the JP side compared to on the global side. That is the only negative thing about her as of right now, because that will change sooner or later whenever Global Square Enix decides to increase the amount of debuffs slash buffs on the enemies. That's the only thing about her right now on the global side, but that's only 4 slots. So you still have 2 other slots available to be able to put in any other debuffs on the enemy. But like I said, you know, if that doesn't bug you, if you don't think that that's gonna get in your way, then Faris is definitely a good LD weapon to pick up. Even if you don't use her in team comps, just using her as a call is really good. And I'm telling you, her longevity as a call ability is insane. Like, she is still being used as of right now on the JP side. Now obviously there will be other debuffers coming up later on that will do a tiny bit more, but the thing is though, again, you can still stack those, and that will help you in making sure that you are able to do a lot of brave damage, a lot of extra brave damage. And not only that, with her LD call ability, if the enemy is not broken, their brave will be reduced to nothing. Like that, and that's another benefit out of it. And even with her regular call ability, you are able to dispel whatever buffs that they have as well. So, you know, if you're concerned like, oh, well, they have these frame buffs, they have all of these buffs and everything, don't worry about it. Just use her regular call and you're good to go. So in my opinion though, if you do have the extra resources, I would highly recommend you pick this up because it will help you out, especially if you use her with as an LD call, or just as a call abilities. So that's my thoughts on Faris. I think that Faris is definitely a good weapon to pick up on, or if not, if you want to wait until later on, you can do that as well. I believe her LD weapon has been reran once so far. So if by chance you don't have the resources now, you can always pick it up later on. So other than that though, guys, that's gonna be it for my for the video. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if there's any other questions that you need to ask about Faris or anything in general. But other than that, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in my next video.